this computer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And maybe also, Aaron, that's something you could let people know.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That's what I got. That's my first sort of announcement.
Okay. Well, I also see a little button up here that says admit all. So whenever y'all are ready, we could just do that.
Right.
As whenever we whenever we do admit all, I definitely, Malcolm, will let's almost treat it like we are in the sanctuary together, and we'd be able to say what's up to everyone and feel free to talk, and then maybe like at 6:35 or 6:37 or something like that, we'll do sort of a formal welcome.
Cool.
That sound good?
Definitely. Excited.
Yep, same.
Very.
Okay, ready for the button?
Ooh, I guess so.
I think it's time. Boom, boom, boom.
Aww. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hey, Mark.
Wait, come say hi, Jess.
What's up?
Hi.
So good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Hi, everybody. I don't want to be all rude, talking to a whole bunch
Hi,
of
Malcolm.
So great to see
Hey.
you.
What's up, Andrew?
Hi, Malcolm.
Hi. Sometimes I can't see his face. And now it's hopping. I'm like, oh gosh. Overwhelmed. Hi, Michael. Lovely. Okay. So, Julie or Aaron, I guess it's, okay, so you've admitted. Yeah, some of the names just appeared. I'm not, now, okay, there we go. Cool. Joy. Hi, Joy.
Hey. I'm doing my hair.
Nice.
Saying what is up to everybody is absolutely what we would be doing if we were in the room together anyway. So by all means.
Grandma, Grandpa, hey.
Hey, Mal. How you doing?
Good.
Good.
Kath, hey. Taylor's here.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Julio. Hey. Oh, there you are.
That was Malia.
Hey, Malia. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Great.
I just got my own iPad, shouldn't I?
Good to see you, girl.
All right. Hey, B. Jalen. Awesome. Okay, so I see what's going on. It's like people were coming up and I just wasn't seeing them come up. I'm like, how did they get in? And I'm like, oh, Julie or Aaron.
Oh.
Awesome. Okay. Park is here. Awesome. Yeah, oh wow. It's so nice to see everybody here. It's like have some even to just see names in a list, because you don't get to be with all of, even outside of COVID times, you don't always get to be with all of your people. So it's nice to have some way to kind of simulate it.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Malia, what you doing? Oh, you're muted.
Nothing, you know. Just living my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
Go on your screen there.
Mm-hmm.
I think you get that close.
Oh, Malia got a
You
thing
go.
up over here
You
now.
go, girl.
I see.
So Aaron, or Julie, or anyone, everyone, how's the sound the speaker on my end, from like what I hear, is a little, okay, it's fine. All right.
Yeah.
It's a little
Okay.
bit,
It sounds great to me, and everyone
okay,
who has said hello thus far
great, great.
sounds super.
All right. Well, if at
We,
any point, just holler or type if can't hear. And then the chat is right here. Okay, great. Lovely, lovely, lovely.
we were saying while in the waiting room, this is definitely the first time, obviously, where we've hosted a meet and greet via Zoom. But the number of folks it has allowed to participate is just super exciting. So
Mhm.
we're super thankful to be getting to see even all of Malcolm's contacts and friends and family from out beyond New Orleans as well. So welcome to all of y'all.
Yeah. Mark, I was just going through something that I'll share later. I was just going through my one of my thesis revisions, and I was like, couldn't find. I don't have the book that I was quoting, but I knew that it was in one, like the first or second draft, and I was like, where is it? So I typed the word into search on my email, and I was like, I'm looking for an email from Mark around April, and it came up.
You found it.
Yeah, I found it like right away. It was very fast.
The missing link.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, Samantha.
Hi.
Good to see you.
You too.
Awesome. Okay. Hey, Jen. Y'all, Jennifer, there's a person in the chat named Jennifer Malinoff. Hey, Jen. That I've known Jen, no, my sister Malia, my grandparents, for obviously a really long time, but I've known Jen for probably half, or a little, probably, yeah, over half. Yeah, over half my life. We met
Okay.
in art class when we were 10.
Mm.
Yeah, big. Jen, really gifted, like really, really gifted artist. Always like is motivational for me. It was really inspiring. We were so young, but so really nerdy, like just sort of really but that was formative, really formative time that we had with an exceptional teacher when we were like in middle school, and we've stayed friends since.
Malcolm, I will definitely defer to you. I will formally kick us off whenever you are ready. But definitely, I will. We can hang. Obviously, in New Orleans, I think if it's a 6:30 event that actually starts at 6:45, we're doing quite well. But I will defer to you for when we do kick it off.
Cool. Alrighty. Yeah, I feel like just like looking in the room, it's so nice because it's tend to, in my work, or like at least definitely in talking about my work, mention a lot of different stories or people that are part of making different works possible. And then there's it's interesting, sort of a moment that I just had in my head. Beatrice, my friend B, that I met at VCU around the time, hey Kaide, around the time that I met Wesley. Beatrice had a really big hand in helping to build an installation that I made in the beginning of 2019, and Mark had huge hand. I'm like maybe a single hand in helping to get the show like fireproof, water like proof up to code for it to happen with the university. And so it's really nice to have them both on the chat. And yeah, it's just great to see people that put up with like these people still kind of put up with the madness of the work. So I'm very appreciative. Someone said fireproof ? And I'm like, I don't think there were any actual possibilities of fire, but you know, the university had always wanted to be extra careful with like a really large, I guess a really large work that they hadn't encountered before in like that tight of a gallery space. But we made it happen. It was really exciting. Zoom is so crazy that I'm like I'm like looking at, I know my eye contact, I'm sure is just like reversed, like what is he doing? But I'm like, oh, it's just some buttons everywhere. So, yeah. Well, you know, I think there's people in the room, I guess, you know, I'm not crazy or, you know, hey, Nora, stickler about time or anything by any means, but if I sort of want to honor, you know, at least honor the space of people being here. So I'm totally able to get started. Aaron, if you want to.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's very few by way of preliminary remarks, but I definitely want to welcome you all to the meet and greet. We are recording this evening. We know that there are a good many folks that would love to be here who are not able to be here. So we are recording on their behalf. So please be aware of that. But let me say this, if we were at St. Roch in the sanctuary for the normal meet and greet, everyone would be eating and drinking at the very same time. So please, 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 feel the absolute freedom to leave your videos on during this Zoom and just be like eating and drinking. I brought some snacks. My best choice prunes are in the house. So nothing says a party like dried pitted plums. I got my snacks ready to rock. Feel the absolute freedom. It looks like Mark is cooking dinner for everyone. With the towel over his shoulder. So I'll be over whatever time you need us to, Mark. We'll be ready. So please feel free to eat and drink. That's what we'll be doing normally. There are a few thanks that I need to offer before we move forward. First, I want to thank Ann Nelson, who coordinated a really incredibly competitive round of residency applications this year and the overall process to get us to this point. And so we definitely wouldn't be at the point where we're having a meet and greet with an incredible artist like Malcolm without a ton of diligent and excellent work on her part. So I want to thank Anne for that. Also want to thank Wesley Chavis and all of our external reviewers for their dedicated work and contributions to this particular residency cycle. It was invaluable work. And also want to thank the congregation of St. Roch Community Church, whose generosity both funds and sustains the real life-giving and nourishing components of this residency. So thank you very much to y'all from the congregation who will be seeing this later on, as well as who are here tonight. So our meet and greet typically offers time for folks in our congregation to get acquainted with the work of the artists in residence, but it's also a time where we enjoy opening up and connecting with an extended family of artists and friends and neighbors, etc. So welcome to you all. Definitely the most geographically diverse crowd we have ever had at a meet and greet. So we are super pumped about that. So without further ado, I'll introduce the person you all know very well in Malcolm Peacock. Malcolm is a multidisciplinary artist who earned a BFA from Virginia Commonwealth, VCU, in 2016, an MFA from Rutgers University in 2019. His work examines the emotional and psychic spaces of Black subjects, and he is particularly interested in the intricacies of intimacy. Malcolm has exhibited work at Cindy Rucker Gallery in New York, and Tarot Contemporary and Rose Arcade in Baltimore. He has held residencies at the University of Pennsylvania, Denniston Hill, and the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture. So if you'll please join me in welcoming your friend, your family member, Malcolm Peacock. I'll throw up that yellow hand clap. Yep, for you, Malcolm. So let's break in where we normally do, Malcolm. And as you were, and it's really cool to have friends that you've already mentioned from this era of your life. As you grew up, what were those early factors that led to your pursuit of the visual arts?
Yeah. So yeah, a little background about me coming to visual art specifically. I grew up in a suburb of Baltimore, and I'd say I grew up 30 minutes, like 25 to 30 minutes from the Maryland Institute College of Art and from the Baltimore Museum of Art, which are maybe about 1.5 to 2 miles from each other. I didn't frequent those spaces very much as a child in any type of repetitive way, but I think for me growing up, there was a geographical relationship to art being like a thing that was in the world, a thing that was possible for people in the world in a long-standing, sustainable, extended way. So that's just sort of like on a macro lens, or me as a subject gazing around, looking around. But the domestic space really plays I'd say a much more active or like larger role in me becoming a visual artist. My mother is in the chat. Hi, Mom. My mom's a hairstylist, and I think that plays a really integral role in me thinking about visuals, but also thinking about creativity. And growing up now, becoming like further into adulthood, I'm understanding a lot more about my mother's profession, and I would say practice. What she does is it requires a great amount of intelligence. My father always told my mother that she should have been an engineer, because my father is a fiber optics engineer, and my mom has a really strong understanding of spatial relationships. So my mother's father became a recent ancestor that passed in April, was an exceptional artist, but across the like range of what was possible. So could build a bathroom, could build a bed in a day, but was also a really fantastic oil painter, and spent the end of his life working in textiles and in like leather-based objects. So I come from a line of people that encourage the arts. And I'll add small little bit about, I think this story is it's very funny, gets me to like the point of not just making artwork, but what is sometimes healthy and good pressure of exhibiting or showing artwork. Something that I was thinking about today earlier is that for me personally, there is a difference in the desire to make work and the desire to share work. So when I was about 8 or 9, my mother asked me if I was okay because she said that she hadn't seen me drawing around the house. And I remember having like such a visceral reaction to the question and feeling almost slightly attacked. And I said, no, I said, yeah, I'm fine. And I was, and I said, like, I'm okay. And my mom said, okay, I was just checking because usually, you know, you're making drawings and you're usually showing them to me. And I went to my room and I shared a room with, I think, both of my brothers at that time. And I went to my room and cried for like a really long time. Just like really, really like palpable sobs. And I think that that came from feeling a sense of potentially letting down someone that believed in me. And it's hard to make all the connections and dots or like of what it means. But essentially what I'm saying is for an 8-year-old to have that that visceral of a response to like to an observation, essentially, is that all that what that was, an observational concern for someone's own child. It sticks with me. It's been sticking with me for a long time. So all to say, my parents and my family all nurtured and pushed really actively for me to not just make art, but to believe in the efficacy of it and for it to be shared.
Malcolm, your practice, as I think many of us know it, seems to intentionally sit between discipline or sit between category. I'm wondering if you could maybe describe a couple of works from your practice that characterizes your practice. And again, I know that's maybe having a singular work that characterizes your practice would be either impossible or undesirable. But maybe are there a couple of, and feel free to if you want to venture into screen sharing by all means, or if you just want to describe for us, we'll listen.
Yeah, I'll definitely will screen share. So yes, so earlier I was thinking about explaining a response about, or explaining just the thought of the multiple media in the practice. So for artists that I think that do this, that oscillate, it's really important for us because it's not really a thing of like wanting, at least for me personally, it's not necessarily wanting to move across mediums, it's like apps just happening to. So I work conceptually first. So the works tend to be grounded in some type of emotion or idea, and form follows from there. So things that need to be sculptures end up becoming sculptures, or things that I feel need to be drawings or only speak with effectiveness come through as drawings. And yeah, I work, like you said in the introduction, my work deals with emotional space. So based and rooted with that as its foundation, I work to serve whatever emotions I'm trying to best express. And also whatever forms I feel can best elicit or best open up a space or of possibility for some type of affect or some type of response from the viewer, whether that is verbal or bodily or otherwise. So I'm going to screen share, and when I first screen share, okay, I'm trying to get to the first, I want to show the works in the order that they are made. Yes, so I'm going to be showing 4 works, and they range from 2017 through 2019. And let's do a share. And they're also take place in some of the places where some of you live, I believe. So right now, you hopefully are seeing an image of about 6 or 7 bodies, more like 10 in actuality, holding another body. Is this the case? Awesome. So, okay, I see a thumbs up, cool. So this image is taken in Richmond, Virginia by my friend, Vijay Masharani, who's an artist living in Brooklyn, New York. Vijay photographed this performance for me in 2017. So this work takes place across the Richmond Slave Trail, and it ends at the African Burial Ground in Richmond. And this is where Gabriel Prosser supposedly, or allegedly, or whatever word we want to use, is buried, along with other slaves who were involved in what's called in history Gabriel's Conspiracy. Gabriel's Conspiracy is the largest failed rebellion on US soil, and the first slave rebellion to sort of scare the government of Virginia into a certain type of response. So in this image, my friend Denzel is being lifted by artists who helped to make the work and people who came to attend the work. So the work takes place across the entire route of the trail, which is 3.1 miles. And it took us 5 hours to cross it, while we encountered vignettes from each of the artists involved in the piece. So I'm going to trying to minimize back out to get to the other images. Okay, great. All right. I'm not sure if anybody here is from upstate New York, but that is where this image is taken. So this work, categorized as performance, was part of a series of performances made during a time that I spent at a residency called Denniston Hill, which is a really special place. I had such a moving experience there, but was only there for 4 or 5 days in 2018. And so for this work, I was thinking through the whole summer about passages in the autobiography of Malcolm X that dealt with isolation and dealt with a really deep desire and yearning for community. It's interesting to look at this image now because the person who I'm with in the image, I did not know, and now I know her, but a lot of these images of me with other people wouldn't be possible now. And that's something that it's just a little aside, but it's something that I've been thinking about, is that my work relies heavily on proximity with others, and the virus has infected that. But in this work, I am reading from 3 different passages of Malcolm X's autobiography. The first passage taking place in the Hill, Hector's Hill, which is a garden that Malcolm X's mother gifted to him. If you've read this book, you know that him and his mother had a sort of tumultuous relationship. A lot of that, which was based on that his skin was darker than hers and was a skin tone that she was envious of. The second passage that I read to the audience member in this piece is from what is called The Whole, which is what Malcolm describes as solitary confinement in jail, which is also where Malcolm X learned how to read. The last passage that I'm reading from in this image is from where Malcolm X is in proximity with other people. And it seems that his desire for longing with others or longing for community with others has finally been met. And he's in Mecca, in the Holy Land, surrounded by brothers and other people drinking from the same cups, eating from the same plates of food. So in this work, I was sharing these passages, but also leaving space after I shared the three for silence and just for communion, and for anything to really be said inside of the space. And what was really interesting about having this experience with the woman who was pictured, Yona, was that she was responsible for me being in the program, and she runs the program, but she came into the work thinking that it was going to be about environmental justice or about jail, which to some extent it was about jail or about confinement. But I was really sort of thrown by the different types of, not interpretations, but just the different levels of proximity to different content that people brought forth in that piece specifically. So I want to share this work, which is a drawing, and a part of my practice is made up of like things that I make, like, or like actually touch with my hand. And this drawing is of singer D'Angelo from what I guess we could say is his most popular song, Untitled, How Does It Feel? And the Untitled video was really seminal for like a sort of, a lot of the 90s, like end of the 90s going into the 2000s introduction into like a Black man with autonomy, right? And I think for a lot of people, there's of course a sense like sensationalism of being warded off or being tempted by like something that is phallic. However, what I think a lot of people are maybe unable to name or identify is that this was one of the first times in media or like in visual culture where people are presented with a subject that will not look away from them, and that subject being Black, that subject being an extremely vulnerably appearing man. In this work, depict the face of D'Angelo. And there are 4 other drawings that are made in this series of work. But I mentioned this in relationship to the last image because around this time, before I made this work, I was feeling really very unenthusiastic about the ability of images or the ability of my images, my own artwork that was visual, to have affect for another person. But I think it just took a lot of digging to find the right images to make that I felt could resonate not only with other people, but could resonate first for myself. For me, I'm not really willing to share something or make something if I myself do not have a strong feeling about it. And right now you all are getting a blank tab. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is the last of the works that I'll screen share. And this work was made in the spring of 2019 at the Brooklyn Army Terminal, which is this gigantic I don't know how big, just like huge, sort of like outrageous space that classmates and I had an art show in as we were finishing graduate school. At some point while I was in school, I had heard of not an artist, but maybe we can say an artist, a man named Antoine Yates, who lived in Harlem. And I think that he may still live there, but he lived in Harlem and he raised a tiger in secret, in privacy, for 3 years, until this tiger was found by his brother. And so ensued some violence because Antoine was essentially trying to make a home out of his apartment that he thought was hostile for him. He didn't like the architecture. He didn't like how it was set up. He didn't like his neighborhood, and it was highly policed for Black subjects. So, and he loved animals, so he started a small zoo, and he had an alligator and this large tiger. And there was no violence until he has brought into the situation a small cat. And the tiger was not happy about the new animal. But I was really interested in Antoine Yates' manipulation of space. And I wanted to make something that reflected on the time that I had spent in my graduate program, which was complicated for the reasons of having some proximity to really intimate and special experiences with different people that changed my life, but also having experiences of isolation and of difference that I hadn't encountered since like maybe high school or middle school. Definitely hadn't encountered in my adulthood. And so I felt a lot of kinship with this man who I had only read about that raised a tiger, in thinking about ways that I had spent the time there at the institution of 2 years of sort of figuring out how I was going to make that a home for myself, or make that a place where I felt like I could be. So I settled on this material as a response to, or sort of an identifier of my mother, as a way of sort of wrapping or binding myself to a surface for hours over time for 6 weeks at a time. And yeah, so these are those works. I think if we want to keep going, and we'll save, if people have questions, can do it after we're done but yeah.
Yes, if there are questions, we will definitely plan to be leaving time for that. Malcolm, there's a sort of logistical question with your work, really rooted in proximity to others, interaction with others. What would a typical day in the studio look like? Is it isolated? Is it making rounds? Is there a typical day in the studio? Maybe that's a better.
Yeah, it's a good question. I want to, something that I can't not note them or give them thanks without, or just mention them without, giving them thanks. But I want to bring up, when I bring up studio, I think of the word study. And I don't know the root, but for me and for a lot of other people, I think study is now, that word is finally being like amended or updated or talked about in like a diverse way that doesn't just have to include reading a book or annotating something. So I want to look at studio visit or studio day in the studio as like day in the life of processing, or a day in a day in the life of like relating or of in having really necessary and important experiences. So sometimes for me, a studio day, I don't know is a working day, or it's important for me that it didn't feel like it was necessarily work. But that study can absolutely be anything that we do with other people, or in any time that we share learning or thinking and speaking and having strong, important conversations with others. I want to bring up this school that's coming up called Dark Study. And they're really rooted in these ideas that learning happens across different mediums, across different geographies, and different modalities of practice. So most days for me, to sort of describe how things start out, is like I try to give myself an hour, 30 minutes to an hour when I wake up before anything like gets happening in life in commotion. I usually go for an hour bike ride. That's kind of the first like thing that I do that deals with experience. And I always take the same route, looking for like new sort of visual cues that remind me of the other rides. And when I'm back from that and at home, I start to read and sift through like old content that I haven't been through, whether articles. I'm really big on lectures, and like really, really huge on transcribing, to a point where it's like almost, sometimes I'm like, what is this? I hope you're going to do something with this one day, but just like extensive transcribing. But Wesley and I had a conversation about this recently. For me, art making is really any practice or any action that I take to communicate something to another being. And so whether that happens in transcribing through drawing, or transcribing through speaking, or transcribing through the formality of like a speech, these are all I consider creative practices or creative ways to go about communicating something about an experience that I've had. But right now, I'm working, I would say like right now I'm working on a really specific project that deals with running, which is a huge part of my life, and I think I could say a huge part of my practice, that feels like what other people describe, maybe the painters in the group describe as like going to the studio. I've only studio space outside of where I live for like 2 months before in my life. So that is almost in a way like kind of a foreign concept for me, or idea or action, although I think I fully understand the need to do it, to have a separate place to work from where you sleep, and maybe from where you eat, like meals of sustenance. But this project deals with running, and so Esplanade, which is like a large road in New Orleans, Esplanade feels like right now like the studio, because that is the main area where I spend working on this performance. I don't know if anybody else can see that I'm working on it, but it's a tough one. I'm trying to make like new challenges for myself in my work, and it's been a while since I felt like I've done something in my work that I didn't know I could do. Most of the time I feel like I think something is possible, and I've been trying for the past few months to move moved back into an area of not knowing exactly if something can work, and also being okay with that if I do attempt it and it crashes or fails, that is part of that process of making.
Malcolm, forgive me in advance. I accidentally ran through your studio space then 2 Sundays ago.
Oh no, right. But it's like,
Fascinated. Didn't even.
hopefully that's like the joy. Yeah, that's like the good, the good thing of it is like the studio can we just have this be like, a space where we all, or those are, I think, my favorite studios, at least a space where everyone can be present, and just be in conversation.
Sweet. For folks that are new to your practice, which I know on the Zoom call this evening, folks are actually probably really familiar. I would ask a question on behalf of those who might be looking in on this recording later. I'm wondering if there's a couple of artists that you would recommend we look at in order to connect more with your work. Not necessarily that they make the exact, not saying that there's a visual parallel between your work and theirs, but I'm wondering if, one, you can offer that to those who are joining, but then for those of us who might know your work better, is there anything that you are reading, looking at the moment that we all, I don't know about y'all, but Malcolm's Instagram can provide like one of the most robust reading lists that I know of. And so, is there anything you would throw at us here on the Zoom call that's been making a difference as of late?
Yeah. So yeah, I want to offer this interview that I'm working with for a piece. The title is lost on me, but all of these words are in the title. There's really not a formal title to it, but the interview is with Joy James, spelled phonetically. Joy James, and if you search her name and then a semicolon and then the captive maternal, comma, the university, comma, abolitionist, comma, celebrity. I won't even say much about the interview other than that the interview is 1 hour and 16 minutes long, but the interviewer maybe speaks like 7 minutes of that, like total. Very seldom does he talk. So that's like one formal thing that I've just been sort of struck by in the interviews, that she speaks so extensively, and she asks maybe like inside of the responses that she gives. Additionally, I would say that a writer who I think about often and like has sort of like foregrounds a lot of works that I've made in, I feel like, the last kind of 2 years is Samuel R. Delany. And I want to read this little brief excerpt from his autobiography, which is the first thing I read from him. I would note that a professor of mine at VCU gave me a book of his when I was graduating from undergrad, and I read some of it, and I didn't pick it up again. It was too dense at the time, but I think that reading Samuel Delany's autobiography can prime someone for the rest of for a lot of other writing. Outside of reading him, he's really been impactful in my work. He says, "I hope instead to sketch as honestly and as effectively as I can, something that I can recognize as my own, aware as I do, so that even as I work after honesty and accuracy, memory, will make this only one possible fiction among the myriad in open conflict that anyone might write of any of us, as convinced as any other that what he or she wrote was truth. But bear in mind 2 sentences. My father died of lung cancer in 1958 when I was 17. My father died of lung cancer in 1960 when I was 18. The first is incorrect, the second correct. I am as concerned with truth as anyone. Otherwise, I would not be going so far to split such hairs. In no way do I feel the incorrect sentence is privileged over the correct one. Yet, even with what I know now, a decade after the letter from Pennsylvania, the wrong sentence still feels to me righter than the right one. Now, a biography or a memoir that contained only the first sentence would be incorrect, but one that omitted it or did not at least suggest its relation to the second on several informal levels would be incomplete. And for me, this part of the autobio, it resonated so deeply for me, not only as being a person whose father also died to lung cancer, but on a deeper level, that the slippage of memory is part of being a human. Like, it's part of what it's not really even possible to reduce it, or to not reduce it, but to try to like capture it with language, because that's kind of what the timeline of grief is like. If you can have one, the timeline of grief is like the color of gray. And there's not really a way to encapsulate that experience. But yeah, I think Samuel Delaney is one of the best with when it comes to like memory, or it comes to talking about lived experience and its impact on us, because so much of the impact that we think it has on us changes over time as we move in distance from certain experiences.
Thanks for that, Malcolm. With so many folks joining us on the Zoom from abroad, I definitely want to honor that time for even folks to jump in and be like, just to say, hey,
Yeah.
I have other questions, but I feel like the more honoring thing to do would be to open the floor at this point to the folks that are gathered. So if you have questions for Malcolm, or you just want to say what is up, please feel free to unmute and do so. The time is y'all's.
And questions will sort of load from the
Malcolm, can I jump in real quick?
funny. Sorry. Yes. Was that Mark?
Hi, nice to see you and everybody. I feel like this is sort of an impossible question, and maybe it's an unfair question because we're so in this moment that we're in on so many levels. But this is kind of a specifically question about the pandemic, the virus. And I was just thinking about the space of and the practice of mediation in your work. Not in everything you do, but in so much of the spaces of intimacy or proximity, it seems like you simultaneously bring into those spaces these forms of mediation. So, for example, experiencing a text or recording that was actually done months before, and so there's this way in which time kind of stretches, like the way that you bring people together, or that you bring different conversations together. I feel like you do these interesting things with time and space and distance and intimacy. And I guess it just feels so prescient the way those things sort of play out in our lives now remotely. And I'm just wondering, I'm sure there's way too much to say about this, but what are some of the ways you're sort of dealing with in your practice, like, distance and proximity and mediation, given the pandemic?
Yeah, something that I wrote recently in like a notes file on my phone is like letting drawing be, not forcing drawing to be something that I don't use it for, but like wanting to try to maybe use drawing to do some of these mediating, to serve as the mediator. That would usually actually be me, or usually be, like a recording or something that I did, to sort of using drawing to do the work of placing, of putting in, like being what someone called one time interlocker, the interlocker between people. And there are a lot of works that I want to make right now. The one that I'm working on with that, with this run, that feel like when I'm thinking about the work, it feels like not too basic. If it's just me, that's not how it feels, but I see some excitement in like expanding the piece that I want to make to a group and having it be a group shared experience. And in the way that I see it, it wouldn't be the safest or the healthiest, like in its most effectiveness, at least in the effectiveness that I like can envision. The power of it doesn't seem like it's possible in the circumstance. So that's where I'm thinking about drawing as a way to maybe not simulate, but to try to show, and then to do something deeper than showing, like to do something really emotional and hopefully potentially like really spiritual, or like, and really elevating for anyone that sees it or that engages with it. And that has always been, and I think always will be for me, like the challenge of making images, is that I am so deeply moved by proximity, and by sharing physical space, even though my coming to art is like through visuals. So yeah, I think that will be that's one way that I'm thinking of it, is like, okay. Another way that I'm thinking of it, and that mediation, is through video. However, there is like a balance, or an issue that presents itself with video, I think, in the difference between something that documents, or a video that documents an experience, and a video that is an experience in itself. So, for example, let's say something dealing with healing. Some people who are in this Zoom call have made really amazing work that deals with healing via video. And there's a difference between that work showing a healing experience versus the artwork itself eliciting a healing quality, or healing qualities, or healing effects. So that's where I'm sitting with it. But I'm like, ooh, this is going to be it's a huge challenge, you know, where when the bodies are now removed. But maybe I think it's really worthwhile because unfortunately, like, or maybe not unfortunately, just death also is real and happens too. Like, we're all going to slip away, and what's going to be left is the work, like in the memory of the work.
We both have questions. Hi.
Zion, I'm done with you. What's up?
My question is, what are you reading right
What am I reading right now? Sorry.
now?
My question is, when was the last time you did something for the first time? When was the last time you did something for the first time?
When was the last time I did something for the first time?
Yeah.
That's a great question. Let me think of the last time I did something for the first time. Dang, I'm like, there has to be something I did for the first time recently. Last time. Oh, well, okay. I'm not gonna. I will think harder about the question and I'll text you about it. But because I'm just gonna give you the first answer. Sorry. The first answer is the last time. I'm pretty sure the last time I did something for the first time was on Saturday. I stood on a paddle. What is it? What's the like paddle board? The thing where you stand.
Yeah, it's a paddle board.
Yeah, I did that, and I did it. And Julie has pictures of it. But I had to get off real fast because thought I was gonna die. But so that was the last time I did something for the first time. I'm pretty sure. And then, what am I reading right now? Whew. Well, I am. I'm reading Joy's The Talented 10th. Joy James, that book, and it's really I don't know. I mean, it's kind of sad reading it, and I'm also slowly rereading "Lose Your Mother" by Saidiya Hartman. Yep. I think there's other stuff too, but I'm not reading any of the other things like with any activeness, like where I'm upkeeping on it. Those other two, though, I am trying to want to finish.
Thanks.
Yeah. Ooh. Sorry. Yeah. Scrolling.
Malcolm, so we got the technology to screen share your work, but how come we don't have the technology to screen share photos of you paddleboarding or standing up on a kayak?
I'm sorry, you said what? It like cut a little bit. You said something about screen sharing what?
I'm wondering why we don't have the technology to share images of you standing up on a kayak.
I also don't. I think they're in like my phone, but they're also like Julie's a really good photographer, but I wasn't really standing. I mean, I stood, but it was difficult. So it wasn't. I also thought the photos were going to be like a lot more. I don't know. I just thought I was going to look a little more graceful in them, but
Malcolm, you did that. You did it.
It wasn't that great. I also really wish I could give Zion another answer because I'm like, I really thought I was gonna something deeper, but it's okay. It doesn't have to be that deep all the time. But yeah. Thank you, Jalen. I saw your comment. And Michael, thank you too for your enthusiasm. Yes. Hopefully.
I have a question actually. I'm currently looking at your piece as a part of an assignment and given 10 Black artists that we're supposed to consider their work, and you being one of them, the How Do You Feel piece. Just wanted to get more of your insight about the piece and your thinking behind it.
Yeah, and I think that I'm trying to think if this is like important to know, but that piece is a print, like the one that you're looking at is a print pulled by someone else, because I don't pull prints. And yeah, I haven't really thought about, bye Mark, I haven't really thought about what that part means, that it's a print. But the work, that piece is the first drawing. It's the fourth drawing in that series, but that's the first like those are the first drawings or set of drawings that I made in like 8 years. So I think that's kind of important to know or to think about. But that piece talked a little bit about it earlier before you got in, so I'm happy to talk about it again. And how do you feel is important, I think, culturally as like a visual, like a sort of like a visual object or something that we engage with, because everyone almost, I don't really know many people that haven't seen the video, and it's an extremely sensational video, and it's built that way. Another thing that I didn't talk about earlier that I'll mention is that D'Angelo, the singer, is what some people would consider very short. So like he's like my height, he's like 5'7" or 5'6", and something that was happening when at the earlier part of his career was that he wasn't sort of glamorous enough for his label, and neither was his wife. So he was made to be something visually, not internally or like, you know, whatever, you know, something deeper, but visually. He was made to appear differently to please his label and for what his label thought would be beautiful or attractive. So that image specifically of him crying, I think, is so telling of the experience that plays out through that video and through the sexualization of him, and with that being sort of looked at as the sort of winner in our memory, in the cultural memory, right? In the collective cultural memory, is like people, when thinking about that song, think about that video. And there's less focus on the sort of the amazing, like illustrious, like luscious landscape of this person's voice, and of like the just like I would say pure like athleticism and prowess of his vocal range. So that image specifically, I chose that one of him crying because it to me describes what he must have been feeling, or what I am projecting, what I believe it must have felt like to sing to that extent and at that degree, and to be fulfilled, sort of like fulfilled to the point of tears and of exhaustion. And he's sweating too. And it looks like, it appears that we are confused as whether sweat is tear. So that sort of weird border for me I think is really important. And it's like, I'm really curious about it. At the same time, I think it foregrounds and like sets up, or it sort of predicts what is to happen after the video is released to the public, where what really occurred in the aftermath was not that it was just like interesting, or like people thought it was like enticing. What really happened was that that video almost single-handedly played a role in the sort of downfall of a large portion of his career. And so, you know, there's always questions about like this person. It's like this star, but really it's like almost was held in captive by a music video where, you know, he's like shot from a certain angle because of his height. And it's like, well, we couldn't push your height, so we could push another part of your body or sell like this part of your body, you know, and then that ends up affecting people not listening to his music when he's on stage and wanting something else, some other type of performance that corrupted this figure's, this person's passion. So all of that to say, I think it relates back to my interest of like, what is the range, right? What are the ranges that exist for Black people to have emotional experiences, or for our emotions, our ranges of emotionality to be regarded and to be held and to be honored, and not just to be like accepted or tolerated, but to actually be embraced. So can a person like D'Angelo lash out, and can that Black celebrity figure crack or break? And what are the, you know, where does the line, what is too much, and where's the line drawn between what we are willing to allow from certain people? And I'm interested in that expanding. I'm just looking at all these names. It's so nice to see everyone together. Hey, Joy. Wonderful.
Does anyone else have a question? We'll maybe take one more, or it is really cool to see so many folks come to hear and check in. You all know, obviously here in New Orleans, Prospect got postponed until November. So as we push towards that, with Malcolm being a selected artist for Prospect, we are all really excited to see what transpires for that triennial. But definitely want to thank everyone for being here. And let me just double check. Does anybody have a last question? Or Malcolm, do you want to close out?
Sure, yeah. If anyone doesn't have a question, I'll close out. I think I wanted to do some thanks at the beginning, but I'll do them now. So like, thank everyone for being here. Of course, it means a lot because it just, I think supporting artists just is, I'm not gonna run through the whole spiel speech, but it's super important because artists are like, we occupy a really specific position in the world, and that position, I think, is the one of I'm not going to come up with something clever enough, but what I'm trying to say is that there is a sometimes demonized place in society for persons that speak out, and regardless of what kind of work you make, you are taking a position to put something out into the world. And it's a really vulnerable thing to do, and it can't be looked at with light. But unfortunately, we don't live in the terrain to like have enough language around what that means. But anyone that is like actively seeking their own autonomy, whether it's through artwork or something else, they should be recognized, because it's essentially like the opposite of how the situation is set up, right, for all of us, regardless of race or gender. To under like racial capitalism, there is no one is actually emotionally thriving. Only if there is some thriving, like it's under unfortunate pretenses or like some type of delusion that's occurring. So I want to thank you all for not just supporting me, but like supporting the like idea of coming together under creation, which is like our power. It's like our superpower to be able to like make and interject like inside of the just like machine. I want to thank Aaron for being here too, and for being in conversation with me tonight. And I want to thank the church just for all of the fellowship and just care that provided ever since I've started visiting West like 2.5 years ago. And I thank Ann Nelson for really ushering me like safely into the start of the program, and to Julie for putting together the chat tonight. I wanted to close with a short excerpt from Octavia Butler. And yeah, I think we'll wrap things up. Partnership is giving, taking, learning, teaching, offering the greatest possible benefit while doing the least possible harm. Partnership is mutualistic symbiosis. Partnership is life. Any entity, any process that cannot or should not be resisted or avoided must somehow be partnered. Partner one another, partner diverse communities, partner life, partner any world that is your home, partner God. Only in partnership can we thrive, grow, change. Only in partnership can we live. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it.